Our next speaker will be Steve Jones.
Thanks. Well, thanks. It's good to be here today, and it's nice to see everybody. The first time I came here was 1992, and I was 41 years old, and it looked like there was a lot of old people in here, you know. And now it looks like there's a lot of old people in here that are younger than me, you know. Okay. So yeah, you know, one of the things I always wondered when I was young, why do old people walk that way? And now I know, you know. Now I know, I understand. And anyways, I realize there's some people here that don't know what our civil defense is or was, and so I need to spend a couple of minutes in explaining what it was in the 50s in response to the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which, by the way, this T-shirt here I got in Nagasaki, and it says, "In a moonlit night in Nagasaki." And anyways, what happened was we had a program. All the fire departments used to have these radiation meters on them, and that was in case we actually had a nuclear war with Russia at the time, and they were really worried about nuclear fallout from bombs, and that would have shut our country down. And over the years, new technologies have been developed that that made these more or less obsolete. Well, they're good, but they're obsolete, and they got smaller. Here's a smaller one right here, and they still got smaller. And now we've got this. This is an electronic meter, and this is a chemical. This works by a chemical on it, and this turns colors instantly in dangerous radiation. So we can tell the difference here. Running these costs about $1,000. I mean, they had a person that would go out and do the reading, and then there was another person that would interpret the reading, and then a third person would make a decision based on the interpretation of that reading. So it was pretty cumbersome. And then these meters needed to be maintained and calibrated every 4 years. So it was a program that cost billions of dollars. But it was a good program. And then we had fallout shelter system. That is, if there had been a bomb, a lot of buildings were marked as fallout shelters. And President Kennedy set those up. And they're still fallout shelters, though they've taken the signs down legally. All those buildings are still fallout shelters, so you can look up in your jurisdiction and find out where your fallout shelters are and surprise the owners, you know. Anyways, so they discovered that the fallout shelters was cumbersome, and you know, this was a cumbersome program. It was expensive. Billions of dollars were spent on this. Then they really discovered that education alone would prevent a majority of casualties in a nuclear attack. So they began focusing on education, and that's where drop and cover came in, or they called it duck and cover back then. And a lot of you, I know a lot of you still remember, when I was in elementary school, we had air raid drills. They called them air raid drills, and it wasn't drop and cover. We went in the hallways and got down on our knees and, you know, did that. And I always wondered why anybody would want to bomb us. And then we had to watch A Day Called X, and that's on the internet right now. And that was, that was 1958 it came out. I was in 3rd grade. And it's probably why I'm standing here talking to you now, because it scared me. You know, I mean, that was about what we do in an atomic attack. And it was nice the Cold War ended. you know, and it was nice the civil defense went away in a sense, you know, because, you know, we didn't have that reminder that, oh, there's nukes, you know, down the street waiting to wipe us out. But the problem is that while civil defense went away, the nukes did not go away. And not only that, there are more of them, and they're modernizing them. Now, one of the things, you know, when I was young, I didn't want to miss old age. You know, I'm 70 now, and, you know, I wanted to, you know, old people were always a curiosity to me, you know, and I just wanted to see what it was like, you know, and, you know, I had a severe disease, I had Lyme disease, really severe when I was 40, so when I was 40, I had the body of a 90-year-old. I'm a professional house painter, and I was sick in bed one day, and I was feeling so bad. The thought came to me, you know, I might as well go to work, you know. And I got up, and I was like, had to move in slow motion. I was in a lot of pain, and I found that as sick as I was, I could still work. You know, I didn't have insurance or anything like that. I had a young family, and you know, so for about 5 years, every day I went to work, I thought, well, this might be the last day I can work. And after 5 years of that, I think, I've been thinking this for 5 years and I'm still working, you know. And so I feel like I did my old age, you know, I had 10 years of it, you know, lived through severe arthritis, and, you know, stuff's come on now that usually comes on when you're 70. You know, it's like, all right, I'm not going to worry about it. But one of the things that I learned about old age was that as we get, as our physical abilities diminish, our memories improve in a sense. We remember events. We can live on memories, you know. I mean, I have these memories of things I did in the past, and it's almost like I was there, and it was like, wow, I mean, this is great. I'm living this experience twice, you know, or 3 times, you know. But at the same time, it's like, you know, I'm not ready to live on memories yet. I want to make new ones, but I'm going to talk about a memory now that was very vivid, and that was during the Cuban Missile Crisis, all right? Now, some of you remember that, and I remember it really well. I built a fallout shelter. I was 12 years old, and I dug a hole, and, you know, my dad gave me a little spot by the garage, and I only got down about 4 feet. It was 6 by 6. And there was a lot of rocks, and I'd heat them up with a weed burner and crack them, break them, and so I was wondering why my dad didn't build us a fallout shelter, and a lot of people did build fallout shelters during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and, you know, their equivalent of Home Depot, they had these galvanized fallout shelters that you could dig and install, you know, ready-made ones, but believe it or not, those of us that built fallout shelters were ridiculed, and I was ridiculed. I was in high school, you know, I was the kid that built the bomb shelter. Even my own family made fun of me, and so, I mean, that hasn't stopped, you know. So I resolved when I was a kid that when I grew up, I was going to build the best darn bomb shelter, you know. And then, so I had a young family in Utah, and I saw this article about these amazing bomb shelters that would survive at ground zero. You know, a 1 megaton bomb airbursted at a mile high, and you could live. And Art Robinson was connected with that. That's how I met Art Robinson. And so I built one of those shelters, and I got to know Art Robinson. And I became, locally, I was volunteer with the emergency management for civil defense work. That was about 1979 when I first did. And see, I was a nuclear arms technician in the military. So my job in the military would be to get the missile ready to, you know, send off to some unfortunate city. It was a submarine program, and so I was in training for that, and I realized I really liked the Navy, and I really liked the military, still do. But I realized that these missiles would kill millions of people. And I had watched the Eichmann trial in 1960. I watched the trial of Adolf Eichmann. And his defense was I was just following orders. You know, he was involved in, you know, transporting workers to the death camps, and they hung him for that, and they wouldn't accept his orders, his excuse. And I imagine myself before a world court, you know, just saying, you know, well, here I'm part of a team to kill millions of people, you know, and they say it's a defense, but I realize that there's nothing defensive about our submarine program. These are offensive missiles. This is first strike. And I felt like, all right, if I can be on a team to kill millions of people, then that means the opposite is true. I can be on a team to save millions of people. And so I applied for discharge as a conscientious objector. And I went to a college, Friends World College. The whole curriculum was based on the study of the economic and political causes of war and solutions. And so that's been my life's work, even though I paint professionally. The civil defense has been an avocation. And so with Art Robinson, we had quite a volunteer program, and we naively believed that the government would maybe do civil defense, and we lobbied the government. At one point, I went to every office in Congress, all 535 offices, and you know, showing the new technology that the Department of Defense had made, and finally we realized that not only would the government not only not do civil defense, our government is opposed to civil defense. So it's basically, we are on our own, and in 1993, our government officially ended civil defense, all the funding, and they left it up not to municipalities. They didn't leave it to the states. So your state emergency manager, whoever he is, and emergency management used to be called civil defense. It's now called emergency management. But your state director of emergency management cannot tell anybody under him to do any preparations for nuclear. He can recommend it, but he has no authority. It's, you know, each town has the authority, you know. And so there's a few towns that do that in the country, but for the most part it's gone. And so what Art said was, you know, we had quite a few volunteers, and he said we needed to make civil defense pay its own way. We needed to make it pay. And because we just get tired in working out. So I started making little kits. The government, the fathers of the atomic bombs, created this manual here. This is our current civil defense right here. It's in this manual. And this was created in case we never had a civil defense or a stopgap. And it's called Nuclear War Survival Skills. And part of it was they showed how to make a little fallout meter from materials only in your kitchen. It looks about like this. And newspapers around the country, if there had been a crisis or an imminent attack, would have published the plans so everybody could make these fallout meters just from home materials. Very, very simple. And it was tested so that 12-year-olds could make them. And what happened was, we all got old, but and the 12-year-olds today, you know, forget it, you know. And anybody under 65 probably can't make these, but it's still simple to do. And the purpose of these was not to measure radiation, all right? It was to show you there was no radiation, right? The biggest problem in a nuclear attack, and they learned it from the bombings on Britain and London, that the panic that the first bombings on London caused did more damage than the bombs themselves, okay? So, and the people that did our civil defense knew that panic will do more damage than the bomb, believe it or not. And so, and this was created so people would not stay inside too long. People would be afraid to go to work. And, oh gee, the bombs would, the enemy would like us to stay inside and fall out. And what lockdowns? What did they do? You know? What'd they do? You know? Hey, that's a cheap nuke, you know? That's a cheap nuke. The lockdown is a cheap nuke. The worst thing that could happen, our civil defense, was to people not going to work. And that was, education was keep America working. And so we're still, somehow I started making these kits, and my kids started, you know, it was 1988 or 9, and I remember I went to the grocery store and I got 40 cans of beans, 8-ounce cans of beans, and I got some drywall. There's a little drywall here and some aluminum foil and plastic, and I put it in together, and no instructions. I put it in a little brown paper bag, and I took it to a civil defense meeting. We actually had some in those days, and I sold them all, you know. And so I made some more, and I sold those, and I was selling them for $3. So I had a bunch of kids. We had 11 kids all together, so we had a great workforce. And so we ended up making hundreds and thousands of kits, you know, and the kids it was nice spending money for the kids. And, you know, during the early years, it didn't, you know, I mean, it was a part-time thing. So it grew, and then there was 9/11 happened, and in '92, I took the kits to dealers, you know. I mean, I started with, first I went to the groups, and the first dealers, you know, I show them this paper bag, and they say, get out of here, you know. And, but one dealer, he helped me out, and his question was, how many do you have, and how many can you make, you know? That was his big thing. He wanted to know how many I had and how many I could make. Well, I had about 30. I can make about 25, you know. And so he helped me out, and so in time we made actually many hundreds. And I remember at the time there was a sale at the supermarket, and this tomato sauce was 10 cents a can, a little 8-ounce can that we made the meters out of. And I bought 1,000 cans, you know. And my wife's freaking out. I'm bringing home 1,000 cans of tomato sauce. What are you going to do with those? Well, the neighbors, we gave them to the neighbors. They had a bunch of kids, and he says, look, you can have the tomato sauce, just clean the cans and give them back to us empty, you know. Because if you bought a can back then, it was like 40 cents, but, you know, this way it was 10. And so, and I had no way to sell, you know, no prospect of selling them, you know, so, but we ended up making those 1,000 meters, and we sold them, you know, and so I get more cans, and we always sold the meters we had. And then when 9/11 happened, the day after 9/11, we sold more meters, we had more sales in that day than the previous 10 years, all right? And so it grew, and it grew so fast, it grew so big, my kids couldn't make them anymore. And Crescent Kearney, I got to work with Crescent Kearney on it when he was still alive, and my name's in the book, you know, because I got to help make improvements on the Kearney fallout meter, and that was a great honor and experience working with him. But you know, as I got in kind of deeper than I had intended, you know, I mean, it just grew, and so. To make a short story longer, I got the Department of Defense, in response to 9/11, created a new technology, the chemical radiation meter. And this is great. And Emerson wrote that the burglar saves the life of the widow by causing her to put locks on her doors that protects her from the murderer. All right? And so 9/11 gave us these. This is this, all right? Anybody can carry this. So if you think in terms of it, you know how technology has worked, this program costs billions. And this is, in the old days, this is worth $1,000, really. I mean, you know, what it does. You know, look at our cell phones. They used to be, you know, big computers. And so suddenly, this makes civil defense not only possible, but it makes it so private people can do it, you know. Just like a small group of private people with dressed funny can make a little suitcase nuke and put it in a city and blow it up, and they don't belong to any country. That's called nuclear terrorism, you know. They can, and so private people can do the opposite, you know. We can do enough, and those private people happen to be right here. The good news is now we have civil defense again. The bad news, it's you. Yes. It came out of DDP, and so, and Art Robinson, we followed his counsel to make this attractive to entrepreneurs. We created, you know, not DDP, but members of DDP created KI4U. He was a little guy selling potassium iodide out of his basement. And we educated him, we assisted him to become a private radiological laboratory and manufacturer of radiation detectors. And he's put millions of dollars into it. And he would be here today. That's Shane Connor. A lot of you know him. And his mother died. His 90-year-old mother died, and he had to go up and take care of business, you know, family business. But so on the other side too, so we did make these attractive enough and, you know, sellable enough, and we actually attracted an investor, you know, and we now have over 100,000 of these. You know, we have over 100,000, and in old days, that's worth $100 million in old money. You know, I mean, what we can do. We went through the state of Arizona in 2009, before these were invented, or we had these, and we made this nuclear attack kit, and it's got everything you need for nuclear attack. It's got this manual, and it's got actually not this radiation detector, but a smaller one in it, and it's got these, and it's got a factory-made Kearney fallout meter, and we got them to almost every town and city in Arizona. And when I first contacted the state office of Arizona that we were going to come down and civil defense their state, you know, they didn't even call me back, you know, they won't even talk to you, you know, and so we did it anyway. We didn't know if it would work, and we went to each town. By the time we were done, we had, let's see, the fire departments were waiting for us, you know, and even when we were done, we got a call from one department to say, hey, we didn't get ours. And then, you know, finally I called the state office, you know, and they said, well, you know, come in, you can have from 10 to 11 or something. I said, what do you mean? He said, you can have an hour with the state director. And I'm thinking, holy mackerel, you know, what, they're going to talk to me? He's going to talk to me for an hour? And so I go in there, he says, oh, Steve, welcome, you know, and what can I do for you? This guy's on a secure military base. I had to go through all these, you know, it's like, wow, it's DARPA or something. And yeah, he's just like, what can I do for you? And I said, oh, can I have a picture of you with this stuff? And yeah, I take pictures and everything like that. And he's just like, yeah, he used his name, and it was great. And so we followed up with, Jane Orient's followed up with these, I think. Arizona is still the one state that's really equipped. And I've been working on Utah to do that, but we did attract an investor. We attracted an investor. And I think that I gave a talk years ago, and I felt like this was, I was doing the one for the angels with Twilight Zone, you know that, you know, I'm an emergency, I'm a volunteer in emergency management, and, you know, the professionals don't really like volunteers, but they tolerate us. And so because I'm a volunteer, I can go through, I turned down a meeting with Jane and all. We went to Washington. We turned down a meeting with President Bush. We'd already been to every member of Congress, and it's like, they said, well, we can meet with President Bush, but he can't do anything. And like, we don't want to go to another meeting, you know, so forget it. Anyways, anyway, I lost my senior moment here. So the bottom line is, you know, this guy comes along unsolicited. Yeah, you know, as an emergency manager, the decisions I make if, you know, the decisions that are made here, we're talking millions of lives right now. I want to introduce a man. That has made this possible. John Lyons. John? Yeah. Thanks. That you know, we've gone from the garage. We're in the big league now, and we're ready to roll. That we tried with Nebraska. We sent out 2 of these to every fire department in Nebraska. There's only 250 towns, so it was kind of easy to do. And then kind of ran out of steam and meters on Iowa. It's really and so our current plan is what we're going to do is we're going to send 2 of these meters to all the volunteer fire departments in the country. And the reason we pick volunteer departments is because they want them. First of all, the small towns, we go to them and they say, we love free stuff, you know. And the other the other thing is the firefighters themselves say, you know, they say they have to respond to nuclear and they're not trained. You know, they haven't been given anything. And so we're really welcome. And there's 19,000. And so it's not you know, it's like, I mean, we can do it. You know, we have 100,000 meters. And now these meters, they don't sell. We've got them ready to sell on the market through Shane Connor. You know, and we've done. He gives them out as promotionals, but when these go on the market, it's going to be for a disaster, which I hate to say that, you know, we're in a new Cold War now, in case you haven't noticed, and if you remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, that's what it feels like right now. You know, it feels like the Cuban Missile Crisis too, and I hate that feeling. You know, we got a sick feeling in the bottom of our stomachs, and you know what's going to happen. Anyways, so we send out 2 of these to each of the volunteer fire departments, 19,000 of them, and the cost of that is, I mean, you know, our biggest problem is what we do costs so little that it's not credible. So probably we could do it for $10,000, you know, pay for the postage. We have enough meters. It would kind of deplete some of our inventory, but, you know, we need 40,000 meters. We have that, and call them up, tell them it's coming. So anybody that wants to participate in this, like addressing envelopes, you know, we hand address the envelopes because otherwise they're not going to open them. And then we call the department, and you don't have to talk to anybody because you can't get a hold of anybody anymore, but, you know, you send it to put the chief's name on it or somebody's name on it there, and call them and leave the message on their voice phone. And then one of the things we did, you see in my little folder here, all these little newspaper articles in Arizona, when we gave these kits out, we go to the local papers. These are like weeklies or bi-weeklies. And we got lots of press, lots of publicity on it. But it also helped educate the public, and that's the same thing we'll do for America's volunteer fire departments. And also, I think it'll create a buzz in the country, and our country's not going to have a national civil defense, you know, it's Sunday. I like to talk about God on Sunday, but you know, we're really talking about a remnant. You know, a remnant. We're really saving a remnant. But it's a lot of people. I mean, we can make a big difference for millions. But Wayne LeBaron, who I knew. He's passed on. He worked on the nuclear tests in Nevada, and he would go. His job was when they vented at night. They didn't warn the people. They landed on, dusted the cars and everything like that, the houses. And he said they go into some towns sometimes. He's expecting to find dead people, and he said that because they were in their homes asleep, it saved their lives. And he said the fallout danger is overrated, all right? A lot of those FEMA shelters you see, all of them, in fact, they never tested them, just some guy sat down at a drawing board and made it up in his head, That's what they did. And so, all these, it says, 600 rads, you're going to die, all these things, and the fallout danger, it's highly overrated, it's highly exaggerated. But he said, he wrote a book, Preparing for Nuclear Disaster, and he was ahead of us all because he knew there would never be a civil defense anymore, and he said that, all right, the cities, urban America will not survive a nuclear war, nuclear attack. Urban America won't survive. Doesn't mean that if you live in urban America that you won't survive. Everyone here probably will, because you'll know what to do by the time this talk is over. But that rural America will survive. So he wrote, all his work was for how to survive in rural America. And he wasn't like a shelter in your basement. He was like, you just stay in the center of your house with, don't have a lot of wind blowing through it, and that's enough to protect most people in rural America. And I mean, he made a really simple, you read the old civil defense stuff, and it's like, man, I got to have this vault 50 feet below the ground with an elevator and all that, and it just seems like hopeless. But Wayne LeBaron, he made it so that, housewives look at it, I can do that, and it kind of overcomes that, I want to be under the bomb feeling. And so, we're really working there's two Americas. There's rural and urban, and they're like two different countries. They really are. And, I was in Duncan, Arizona 11 years ago when we were doing these, and I was talking to the battalion chief there, and I says, if there was a nuclear war, what if there was a nuclear war? And he said, we'd like that, We'd get rid of the cities, because the cities, they make rules for us in Duncan that, they just get in our way, the politicians, and I see how much time I have, I don't want to run over. Well, I'll make just
25 minutes.
Okay. Reminds me of, when I was 15 years old, I was in Peru, and I, at that age, Peru, they have a different morality there. I mean, they're really open about it, and prostitution's legal, and so, and at 15, you're old to be a virgin in Peru, but I have friends. I was invited to the brothels, like a lot of friends. So finally, I just, went to look, and it was one of the biggest ones. This is like a city, I mean, this is like, I was blown away. I mean, this is called Mexico, and and then years later, I went through, the red lights and barracks, is endless, it's like a schoolboy's dream, I guess, but I remember how it was. I remember the spirit there. And then, I don't know if 10 years later, there was an article in Time magazine. They shut that place down, and there was 2,000 sex workers there. There was 2,000 sex workers. And so it's in 2010 when I went to Congress, and we went to every office in Congress. I had a friend. He was a political guy. It reminded me of that whorehouse, Really, I'm not kidding. It reminded me, I just felt, yeah. And the other thing too, I mean, I had a hard time, interns, I think, oh my God, I mean, some of them, if not most of them, they were dressed that way, and I thought, man, I sure hate to have, I thought the young guys working there, but the old guys working there, how can you work in an office like that, it was just, yeah, and not only that, is these guys seem out of touch, you know, because I've ridden across the country several times, you know, getting these meters out. You know, I bicycle, and I got on a bicycle, get to meet the people, and, you know, it's kind of a quirky, gets their attention. Yeah, I just, you know, riding through flyover land, bicycling, you know, and really seeing there's two Americas. As these people are resourceful, but you know, I just had the sense that congressmen they're so out of touch. They're not. It's another country. They're just, you know, some people say you could just get rid of them all, and, you know, and it wouldn't make it would be a positive thing. Yeah, and that's. Anyways, yeah, after going through Congress, I tried to get them to earmark, this is a Defense Department project, and just trying to get them to to give these out free to the first responders. They have a grant process to get them to first responders, but, you know, it's so full of red tape, it's not doable, you know, it's just not doable. And so I got a chance to meet with Governor Ridge. I worked with the lab on this. You know, they didn't actually, the lab that made these, it was a good idea, but between the scientists and the bureaucrats, they had no sense of connecting it to the people on the ground, you know, and I got to work with them on that, to connect it to the ground, and it was a fight all the way, but we've kissed and made up. You know, he threatened to sue me over these at one time, but, you know, I mean, he helped me do it and said I could do it, and then he said I couldn't do it, and then, no, he's okay with it now, we're friends, and I can actually be a dealer for his other stuff, but the prototype, you know, the original prototype, it looked like a credit card. There was a credit card, and it was, you know, full of colors, and then there was a postage stamp version of it. And then I had my version. This was originally called the oh shit meter. And so I was showing Governor Ridge them. You know, I got to get in, you know. And he was looking at the card, he looked at the postage stamp, and then we call it, no, oh shucks meter now, it's Sunday. And he just busted a gut laughing. You know, he said, this is it. Go with this. This is, that's what we need, safe, not safe. And give them out free to the first responders, get corporate and private donors to pay for them, you know, and so that was our marching orders. And the reason I picked the profanity name, it wasn't a joke, it was because there was a plane crash in Pennsylvania with commuters, and the pilot's a black box, that was his last words, and he was fighting and struggling to keep the plane, you know, I mean, to the end, and I felt like that, you know, and that's black boxes, those are the last words a lot of pilots say, you know, I mean, they fight to the end. And that's so there's two versions of this, you know, to the saltier crowd, you know, we give out to the, you know, the firefighters like the other one, you know, but, you know, it's Sunday, and so. Yeah, this is, I put a lot of stuff in here. This is my nuclear ramblings. You know, I thought, man, this has been torture preparing for this talk, because I felt like, you're not supposed to think about what you're going to say ahead of time. I thought all these things I was going to say ahead of time, I think, well, and I've thought about I can't say that, you know. So I wrote it all in here. You know, I didn't want to fill up my time with stuff that was maybe irrelevant or boring, and, you know, get lost in it. And then the articles, this is our piece of the response. So Washington Post did a story. I remember I got a phone call from the guy, says he's from the Washington Post, and can he interview me? And I'm like, are you kidding? You know, you know. And they did a front page. We got they did a full page story on the Kearney fallout meter. Anyway, so and I just. I have this article here, and here on the back, you might have seen this, and it just shows 91, 92, the 5 years of DDP meetings, approximate years, and all the civil defense talks. And DDP used to be just civil defense, and now it's dwindled down to me. You know, I mean, just this one talk. But I wanted to have the best handout here. You know, so I did this one. Anyway, I did it big. You know, because I wanted to make a point, a civil defense splash. And I want to read this this is Shane Connor. He's one of our heroes. He's, let's see, and he's, you know, I've given up on the public. You know, Shane has not. He's been hell-bent on working with bent on working with the public. And I like to work with first responders, you know, get a good response for them. Public is like, they're tough. But this is his, he's got his website, it's goodnewsnuke.com. Says, I'll read a little bit of this here. The good news about nuclear destruction. What possible good news could there ever be about nuclear destruction coming to America, whether it is dirty bombs, terrorist nukes, or ICBMs from afar? In a word, they're all survivable for the vast majority of American families if they know what to do beforehand and have made even the most modest preparations. Tragically, though, most Americans today won't give much credence to this good news, much less seek out such vital life-saving instruction, as they have been jaded by our culture's pervasive myths of nuclear unsurvivability. Most people think that if nukes go off, everybody is going to die, or it'll be so bad they wish they had. That's why you hear such absurd comments as, if it happens, I hope I'm at ground zero and go quickly. This defeatist attitude was born as the disarmament movement ridiculed any competing alternatives to their ban the bomb agenda. Like civil defense, the activists wanted all to think that there was no surviving a nuke. Banning them all was your only hope. The sound civil defense strategies of the 50s and 60s have been derided as being largely ineffective or at worst a cruel joke. With the supposed end of the Cold War in the 80s, most Americans saw neither a need to prepare nor believe that preparation would do any good. Today, with growing prospects of nuclear terrorism and nuclear saber-rattling from rogue nations, we see emerging among the public either paralyzing fear or irrational denial. People can't even begin to envision effective preparations for ever surviving a nuclear attack. They think it totally futile, bordering on lunacy to even try. So that, if you read this, this is on the internet. The great thing, in the 80s, early 80s, we had to cart around boxes, you know, hundreds of pounds of pamphlets. There was no internet then, you know, to get this information to people. And when this was published, I think they put out 500,000 or so. But now this is on the internet, okay? So at a click of a mouse, back then it would have cost $1 billion to send one to every, you know, to 100 million of these out to the public. But now that's free, you know. It's like, wow, the nukes have gotten bad, you know. All these modernization of nukes, and it's scary. But the counter to it has gotten equally good, in a sense of, wow, anybody can get this now, if you don't have to read the whole manual, the first 35 pages, you know, the main training for nuclear attack is thinking about what you would do if it happened, okay? Most of you, all of you now, because you're listening to me, you know, yeah, you're thinking about it, you know, and you know what you would do, and like drop and cover, that alone would prevent a majority of casualties. That's hard to believe, you know, that, oh, they ridicule that, but people think, oh, how is getting under my desk or, you know, lying down going to save me? Well, if you're 10 miles away from the bomb or 20 miles, it sure will. If you're 5 miles away from the bomb and standing, you'll probably be killed. If you lie down, you'll probably be fine. Yeah, my son married a Japanese girl, and lives in Japan and speaks Japanese, writes Japanese, and he's got 2 Japanese grandchildren. I find it an irony that his father was, you know, in the invasion force that was going to attack Japan, and he's making more of them, you know. So, anyways, it's hard to, you know, and I had several visits to Japan, And it's hard to imagine. There's that people are so nice over there. Why do we have a war? I know they attacked us, but you know, it's just hard to imagine that we were at war at one time. But you know, they have the same problem we do with civil defense. I had this, you know, we went through this process as we wanted to condense this manual here into a fold-over business card, and we did. Here it is right here. And it's been very popular. We did in 2009. It's gone all over the world. In Japan, I had a chap translated Japanese. The Japanese police loved it, you know. And but they're the same situation. My son took me to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Spent 2 days in each place, and you know, I've been doing, you know, civil defense for 30 years, and I thought I was, you know, the last word of civil defense. I thought I knew something about civil defense until I went to Japan and Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And when I saw where people survived and how they survived, and talked to people that lived through that era as well as former survivor, I realized that the bomb is so overrated. You know, I went in this building, you know, in the Hiroshima Memorial to get some bubble gum or something. And I didn't realize it was one of the original buildings. There's a ruin there that it's like a fake ruin, you know. It looks like, you know, you see this building and it's, and they show it, and it's like, it was built in 1915 and of poor construction, you know. And this other building is like, it was practically untouched. It was built in 1929. And so it was directly under the fireball. And I went in there and I found out, oh, that was directly under the fireball. And then there had been 29, I think 29 or 30 people in that building at the time. And one guy was in the basement goofing off, smoking a cigarette. And he survived. Everybody upstairs was killed. And I think, oh, that goes against everything that I was taught about civil defense. This is just a building. I mean, it was pretty, you know, it had the concrete tilt-up sides sort of thing. But, and the blast wave came down. It didn't, you know, the buildings weren't knocked down. The blast wave came down on top of it, so it didn't knock it down. And just seeing where people survived, and that, I guess 15% of the casualties in Hiroshima were radiation, you know, only 15%. I said, wait a minute. Now, the bomb was blown up in the air, so there wasn't fallout. Where'd that radiation come from? It would have had to have been it would have had been neutron radiation from the initial flash. And the thing about neutron radiation, it doesn't go very far. You have to be really close. The blast will kill you before the neutron radiation does. And so what that means is people were extremely close to that blast and still survived. A lot of people. That it's amazing what some people can survive. You know, people fall out of airplanes and land in snow or something and survive. And I had a customer of mine, she tripped on a little step and broke her neck and died, you know. And anyway, the nuclear is highly overrated. So, okay, 10 minutes now. I might have raised questions. Some of you, if you want to, this is meant to be like a training film in the sense that I might have left something out. But if you have a question, you can interrupt me now, or, you know, we have conversation here. Somebody have a question about what I'm saying. There's, you know, trying to condense, you know, 40 years of civil defense activism into an hour, you know. This article here, the rising threat of nuclear war is the most urgent matter in the world. And I'm saying this COVID stuff, forget COVID, you know. Look what they're doing, you know. We're on the edge. You know, I got Taiwan, Ukraine, Syria, you know, just how many flashpoints are going now? And it's, there's a lot of Korea, nuclear saber rattling. And I'm telling you, that this is, you know, there's so much talk about the COVID thing. And it's like, oh, why aren't we talking about anything? I mean, it's a diversion. you know, in my opinion, we're at war now. We're at war. This is 1963 on steroids. And what this is saying, you know, people think that, oh, there's like all these nuclear nations have one button. No, she's saying there's thousands of buttons out there, nuclear buttons. And you know, the story of when they did the blockade. I remember they did the blockade in Cuba. That was an act of war. Our Navy did a blockade against the Russian ships. And one of the Russian submarines, they had a nuclear torpedo. And there's 3 officers on there. 2 of them decided to fire that torpedo, that nuclear torpedo at one of our ships. But they had to, in order to fire it, they had to have agreement between 3 officers, all right? Okay, that one officer disagreed, all right? Disagreed. Do you realize that, you know, could have been what he ate that morning or something like that? I mean, just one guy, the decision of this one guy, if he had agreed, we'd have had World War III. You know, it wasn't Kennedy, it wasn't Khrushchev, and that's where we are, okay? Here we go, I got a victim.
You sounded like you needed... 1, 2. You sounded like you needed saving, so... 2 quick questions. How does the can work? I mean, what does it actually do? You didn't describe that. And second, they're afraid that Biden could wake up one morning, have a dream, and decide to nuke Cuba. So they want to take away the one-man button option. What do you think about that?
There's not one man. No, Biden has no control of the button whatsoever.
So explain that. But first, the can, please.
Yeah, the can. This is an electroscope, and I can show you actually work discharge out on the table out there. You know, it's just a simple electroscope. That's all. And but the person that, you know, it's going to come down to some, you know, low-level geek that, you know, that's what they're saying here. There's thousands of buttons, you know, and that, you know, the problem isn't, oh, they're going to decide to have a nuclear war. It's a nuclear war by accident, you know. And Bill Gates is getting up there, and his fascination for depopulation, you know, that's probably Bill Gates's happiest dream, you know. Yeah, that these now, okay, like I say, these are going to be $60, $70, or $30 and $60, probably if there's an event. Everybody can have 2 free here, all right? These are $400, okay? This is a ready-to-use Kearney fallout meter. You can get them for $50, and it would come with a kit here. These kits, it normally takes you about 20 hours. That's a 20-hour thing to make a kit. A lot of this is pre-assembled, so it's like an hour assembly on this. This meter here, okay, these factory-made Kearney fallout meters are the best meters on the market. This is a $500 meter here. This is probably 10 years old. And it works most of the time, you know? Yeah, exactly. And, you know, if Crescent Kearney said, oh, don't build one of these at the expense of one of these. Go buy a good meter. Yeah, well, there aren't any good meters out there, in my opinion. Forget it. And it takes 8 hours to learn to use one of these. You're going to spend, if you make your own Kearney fallout meter, all right, you're going to make 2. You'll learn how to use it at the same time. That's your best bet. I think you're wasting money buying a meter, one of these. One of these meters at $50 here, which is, like I say, they're going to be $400. There's only about 7,000 of these. But these are the best meters, fallout meters on the market. They far surpass any electronic meter. These cannot give a false low. They cannot tell you it's safe when it's not. These can tell you it's safe. They can give you a false low. In other words, they can tell you when it's safe, when it's not. This can do a false high. That won't kill you. A false low will kill you. And so that's, you know, we didn't realize that when we started making these, we were making the best meter on the market. You know, the best fallout meter. So, and also, yeah, if, like I say, we need we don't need your money, you know. We don't need your help, but we sure could use it. Yeah, we want to do those fire departments. So if you can, you know, if you want to help out, you know, this is like, you know, the Operation Smile and stuff, and you know, I like that. I extended that, but help kids with their smiles. You help make people with their lives on this. You're saving lives. The money that you put in this, you know, it's opportunity for you. You know, I don't care if you're putting money in. It makes more. He put that money in, and I have to work. You know, I'm just like, yeah, he's ruining my life. You know, no, I have to work. You know, it really put me to work again. So, but yeah, this is opportunity. You know.
I still don't understand. Can Biden say nuke somebody and push the button like we used to believe?
No.
Who
No.
does?
Probably one of the Capitol Police, you know.
If you don't know, it's okay to say I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know it's not Biden. Yeah, so I don't know who does. I just know it's not Biden.
I don't understand how a soup can and a child can put together a meter. Could you explain that so that I can understand?
Okay, well, all right. Now the children today, you.
An intelligent child from 19.
All right, yeah. You know, they only know how to do this, you know. Okay, anybody that's over probably 70 now, I don't know, maybe. If you were 12 years old in 1962, 63, you'll be able to make a meter. And it's simple. I mean, it's the instructions are right here, you know. I recommend you make one, you know. And then I'll show you, I have a radioactive source out there, you know, smoke detectors, lantern mantles work, radon, you know, you can just use a vacuum cleaner. You know, you're breathing a lot of radiation right now. So yeah, I'll be out there at the table and, you know, show you how these work. I did the rocks. The rocks were to...
Just describe it. What does it do?
What do you mean? It has leaves in it. All right, and if the leaves are moving, it means there's radiation. If they're not moving, it means you're safe.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hi.
Oh, I just wanted to mention to Alan my understanding, and you correct me, Steve, is that you create a static electrical charge that causes these two aluminum foil leaves to separate. And as long as there's that charge there, they stay separated. But ionizing radiation lets current run through the air. So that causes these leaves to flop back together again. Is that
Thanks.
sort of
That's
it? That's my guess.
All right. Oh, he's got one more question. Okay.
It sounds like the can will work more than one time, so it's something you can build and use it several times.
Forever.
Of course, if we have
Forever.
five
Yeah,
boards.
that's good. That's
What
good.
about the card with the chemical? Once it turns,
That's a
is it-
one-off.
It's one time.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Jeremy.
All right. Okay. Thank you.